Hello and welcome to the Mercenary Star Podcast. We are a BattleTech podcast covering the storied mercenary units in the BattleTech universe. My name is Seth, also known as White Fox, and I'm your host. And today I am joined by a very special guest, acclaimed BattleTech author, Jason Hansa. Jason, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. And thank you for agreeing to come on to the podcast today. We are going to talk about a special mercenary unit today. We are in episode 13, and we're going to be covering these. Yeah, Lucky 13. Oh my gosh, I just realized too that that's going to be a big number in 2 days during the Super Bowl. So if you know, you know. But some people put a lot of weight in the number 13, but that's okay. But it's 13. We're covering the Screaming Eagles, which is a unit that has been around forever in all the source books. But we are fortunate today to talk to Jason because he is bringing us our first fiction for the Screaming Eagles. And we're going to get into that. But first, Jason, give me a brief snippet of how you got into BattleTech.
Briefly, it's my best friends were a year older than me, so I was in 8th grade, so this would be about 1987, and they were in high school. They were a year ahead of me, and they came back one day, because we were still getting together, and they're like, "Hey, we learned this cool game. You want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "It's got big robots shooting each other." I'm like, "Yes."
Who doesn't like
And that
that?
was it. Exactly. I mean, I was in, so as a 13-year-old, so I sat there and I started, eating up as much of the lore as I could. And so, yeah, from there, I mean, I got the original Merc's Handbook and the
Nice.
original Nord's Irregulars, the one with, Joshua and Rhonda on the cover.
Yeah.
And I read them over and over. TRO 3025. Like, I was picking up the lore parts before I finally got a copy of the rules. And at that time, it was the Rules of War, the one with the Atlas on it. And I actually didn't have a
Oh, yeah.
box set until like third or fourth edition. I never, I never had a second edition box set. It was
Yeah.
because BattleTech is play with what you want. So we're sitting there using pennies and Lego men, and
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah. And so then that was it. Just kept reading it. Picking up the books. My first novels were the Warrior, not the Warrior trilogy, but the Clan Invasion trilogy.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
for everybody
Absolutely.
who knows the characters from the first books, they're like, "Oh, this is so neat." And for me, I'm like, "Who are all these people?" But it's like whatever.
Right. You're like, they sound like some of the old people in the books that I read, right?
Right. So I knew
No.
who they were, and then I got the 20-year update and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So but yeah,
Fun
no,
fact, I
I
didn't
was
know the 20-year update was so early and that it was a 20-year update within the BattleTech timeline so that everyone knew, oh, all these people, it's now 20 years further into the timeline. I didn't know that until recently. I just thought it was kind of like, the 35-year anniversary stuff and stuff like that. I thought it was like the
no, no,
20-year
yeah,
update.
no. It was big after the Fourth Succession War. Then like TRO 2750 came out, which is huge, in our gaming
Yeah.
circle. And this is of course before battle value, so you're just like, would take 2 of these and 3 of those and see if it's a fair fight, and it would never be.
By tonnage, right? We did it by
Yeah,
tonnage. And then
yeah,
BV came out, and we were like, "What's this BV? What's this is weird?"
yeah. Yeah, when
So
when we set up those games with the Clan Invasion, yeah, it was regular was 1 ton, Star League was 1.5, and Clan was 2. That was close enough. I mean, we all
yeah,
sucked, so
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
it wasn't so far off to throw off the game.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. We made it work. We made it balanced, and if it wasn't, we complained until we made it balanced. So
Exactly.
the loser complained, right? Well, again, thank you for joining me today. We are
And thank you for having me.
super excited. I have already loved getting to talk to you ahead of the recording, hitting the record button. But we'll talk. We'll bring some of that into our conversation here. But first, one thing that I am super excited about, and you may have noticed if you're watching this on YouTube or you saw the cover for on social media, this is the world premiere of the cover art for the new fiction that Jason has written called A Skulk of Foxes, and it is a Screaming Eagles story, and so excited. It's not out yet. It's going to be coming out soon.
Soon.
TM,
Well,
Uh,
so once the art is done, readers can assume that it's actually soon. Not just
yes,
like this.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and yeah, I know. You like you said earlier, you're finishing up just a few of your edits, right?
Right, right. It still has to go to fact check, and then it'll come back for me for edits, and then from there it should be kicked out the door. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. So, um, it's and I have been fortunate enough to get an early preview of it, and it's you all are gonna love it. It's gonna be fantastic. Um, can't wait.
thank you,
We won't give
thank you for saying
spoilers.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
No, no, I always see there's Sea Foxes involved. It's right there on the cover,
there
and
is
then there's the
absolutely.
Screaming Eagles. Which is I've been coy with what unit has been involved. When people are like, I'm like, Sea Fox is in the Merc unit, and people are like, which one? I'm like, it's
There's a lot.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
there is.
I'm so excited. The cover is fantastic. We're gonna show it
It
here in
is.
just a few minutes when we get to our presentation. Um, and like I said, if you saw the thumbnail, it's part of it, but we'll see the full cover here in just a second. And then after we release the episode, it'll be fair game and it'll be out there. I'm sure Jason's
All over,
ready
all
to
over.
kick it off and get it into all of y'all's hands. So, but yeah, let's get into our presentation, and we will make sure. Let me make sure that you're gonna show up correctly in the presentation, because we're professionals here. So let's see here. Let me make sure that this is also all right. Yep, gotta move that slightly. Okay, beautiful. All right, let's get over to it. All right, so we are. If you are not watching on YouTube, you should definitely go check it out on YouTube right now. Give us a like and subscribe, but you don't want to miss the world premiere of the cover. And I just showed it off a little earlier than I meant to, but that's okay. There you go. You got the full preview for like 10 seconds. All right. Now we're going to go into our discussion about it. So, but we're going to talk about the Screaming Eagles. The Screaming Eagles are one of the mercenary units that can track their history all the way back to the Star League. And so they were founded in 2750 as the 250th BattleTech Division, part of the 58th Corps 7th Army, and I believe they were in the Capellan Confederation region. Um,
they were.
yes, absolutely. And then they transferred from that. They basically fought in the Periphery Rebellion. They fought with Alexander Kerensky when he retook Terra. And where were they when they retook Terra? I think you said which campaign
Singapore.
was it? Singapore
The
campaign.
Singapore campaign. Yeah. For those
Awesome.
playing at home.
Yes. And their commanding officer at the time was Major General Samuel Castile, from 2759 to 2764. In 2764, that was when the Exodus happened, if I am not mistaken.
I believe so.
If it's not, someone will correct us in the comments. But
exactly,
we're going to say that.
It might just say that he's like the last known commander. Yeah.
Yes, that might be the last known. But whenever General Kerensky went into Operation Exodus, they chose to stay behind and formed the mercenary. Yes.
The division, the Screaming Eagles stayed behind. The division left.
Yes. And then even there was one battalion from the Screaming Eagles that joined the Armed Forces of the Federated Sons directly. Yeah. So, but the part of the unit that stayed behind, they became the Screaming Eagles. Before that, they were nicknamed the Stalingrad Division, during the SLDF days. Also, fun fact, Jason, many moons ahead of deciding to write a novella for the Screaming Eagles, did the write-up for the 7th Army. So,
Yeah. That as I mentioned before this show, when I was started doing my research for this novella, yeah, I'm like Major General Sam Castile. I'm like Castile. Wait a second, I served with a Castile, and so yeah, I looked up the FM, and sure enough, I wrote this unit. So I wrote the
that's
entire
fun.
Seventh Army. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I actually really enjoyed this unit because I deliberately tucked something into this write up because I was a huge Centurion fan also when I was in high school, which is a facet
Okay.
product. It was Graham, and
Yeah.
one of their products, the Second Armored Cav Regiment, the Second ACR, and so I wrote into the description of the 250th that they had sucked up the second ACR. They absorbed them. So that way, there's theoretically a chance that survivors of the second ACR managed to escape with Kerensky out to clan space. So
Yeah.
theoretically, the brave rifles are out there somewhere.
Awesome. Awesome. No, that's
Yeah,
that's
so the
fantastic.
brave rifles. That's the third. I'm sorry, the second, which is the Hootie Fruity. So,
Yeah.
oh.
Well, good.
But yeah,
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and then also too, as far as just kind of fun facts about them, their paint scheme is just kind of the standard Star League colors, right? The olive, drab green, with, and then their logo, if you're watching the
right,
YouTube, is eagle on um, a diving eagle
a
set
blue.
on a blue and green background. So
Right. They are not, and it's important to note that they are not the descendants of the U.S. Army's 101st Screaming Eagle Division. Different
good to
eagles
know.
altogether.
Good to know. Yes,
Yep.
totally separate.
Yeah, and people will go through the old Merc handbook, and there's a picture of like the old Screaming Eagles insignia, and they would think that they're connected. They're not. So
Okay.
I
No,
think the
that's
101st
good to
died.
know. Yeah. But yeah, that's part of their stuff. Now we're gonna get into the fiction, and talk about their unit summary. But from now on, even though I flashed it earlier, you'll get to see the cover. So check it out. This is the amazing cover for A Skulk of Foxes by Jason Hansa. Jason, who did the cover art?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I wish I
Okay,
did because it's phenomenal.
that's
It's
okay. We'll get credit, and we'll credit the artist for it when once we know that. Probably in the show notes, or I'm sure Jason will
Yep,
credit it online later. But as the cover
absolutely.
shows, it is a screaming eagles, uh, king crab,
Yes.
standing, in some sort of base in the rain. For those listening on the podcast, um, shooting off its all of its weapons, and we do get a Sea Fox logo in the bottom. This is the
Hmm.
Fortunes of War number 3, and so yeah, it's I'm honestly loving the all the mercenary fiction coming out. Um, so this has been fantastic. But
Yeah,
before
me
we get
too.
into talking about the book just a little bit, um, beginning again with a summary, they were the 250th Battle Mech Division. The 555th and 56th were the ones that stayed with in the Inner Sphere to become the Screaming Eagles. Um, they suffered a lot during the Succession Wars. They were diminished
They
greatly.
They did. Yeah, five regiments stayed according to the First Succession War source book, and they list them all, and they've got amazing names. I mean, go back to our little notes here,
They
but
really do.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I got to pull up on the other my other screen here. You can read them off if you want to.
Yeah,
When
yeah, absolutely. So the they were the Bald Eagles, the Golden Eagles, the Storm Eagles, the Night Eagles, and the Snow Eagles. Those are fantastic names.
fantastic names,
Um,
absolutely. It breaks my heart. They're at like First Brigade and Second Brigade now. I mean,
yes, I know. I think that those names need to make a return, for maybe the battalions or something, and we can, like because that just screams like, please give me a different logo for each one. Let's have like a slightly different color variation for the paint scheme. Like we could go all in, you know. But
Absolutely. I
it's
fully imagine that the eagle was different on every single regiment, you know.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, so yes, someone out there, start painting some screaming eagles, and use one of these. We would all love to see it. But
Yeah.
yeah, now they've been reduced to, um, just uh,
Two.
two
Well,
regiments.
less,
Well, yeah,
depending on
less
what
now,
war. Yeah.
but after the Second Succession War, they were reduced to two regiments, and then they were two
Right.
regiments
Right.
for the majority of their history as the Screaming Eagles.
Yes.
After that, um, and so yeah, they've been around the entire time. They survived up into the Ilkhan era, which we'll talk about in a second. But during
Exactly.
the Fourth Succession War, they they had a little trouble.
A little trouble.
They
Yep.
had a little trouble. Do you want to talk about their
Minor
trouble?
war planning.
Minor war
Yeah.
criming, right?
Yeah. But you know what? It's like sometimes when you watch a terrible movie, it's the one that sticks in your brain. Like you'll
Mhm.
forget everything you watch on Netflix. One of the reasons that the Screaming Eagles stuck in my brain for 30 years, whatever it is because they kind of did a little war crimes. So,
They did. They did.
in yeah, so in New Canton during the Four Succession Wars, the Second Brigade got frustrated by a Capellan unit. I believe it's the Fourth Reserve Cavalry. Let me make sure I pull that up right. Anyways, so and when they finally caught them, the Colonel Matthias, I believe his name is, he sat there and ordered his mech warriors to weld the Capellans into their cockpits, and they threw them into the New Canton River, the mechs.
Yeah.
And right, and so when Colonel Hokola found out, the commander of First Brigade, he came over there, relieved them. Actually, it was an infantry colonel that was the first on the scene, and it was a very tense moment when she's sitting there as an infantry colonel trying to arrest this mech warrior,
Yeah.
but eventually all the mech warriors kind of moved over to her side, and the colonel stood alone, and so yeah, they cashiered him, but the damage was done. So since
Yeah.
then,
Reputation's ruined at that point.
exactly, and even later in the source books, the Fourth Succession War volumes 1 and 2, they mentioned that their AFF AFFS, that's too many F's.
Yeah.
They their liaison was sitting there fighting to try and get them supplies, trying to get them money, trying because they were about to walk because it, the Federated Sons was mad at them, but their Federated Sons were also technically breaking the contract. So the
Right.
Eagles were about to walk until the LNO managed to convince everything and get them supplies and keep them in the fight. But yeah, the damage was done. Ever since then, the Eagles, they were a Star League descended unit,
Hmm.
and then everybody, and you can see it in the source books as you sit there and you track them through the FM Mercs and stuff like that. Because I tell people they keep getting warped, so
Yeah.
like in Star Trek Next Generation, anytime you want to show that a bad guy's mean, you have him punch Worf, knock Worf out, and so so every time you want to show that somebody's really tough, you have them beat up a couple of units. The Eagles, the Crater Cobras.
Yeah.
It's there's
Yeah. They
these old
become
Star League.
the punching bag a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So they're always around to get punched. They're always good enough that defeating them shows how good you are. It's like
Right.
punching Worf.
There's still clout. Yep. Yeah, and that's that's something that's crazy, right? That they went through that and still were able to maintain two regiments worth of mechs for a long time after that. Um,
Mech supporting infantry, supporting armor. They've got a unit,
yes,
the
big
77th Armor
big
Regiment.
combined arms
Yeah,
unit
huge combined unit. Yeah.
and artillery, which
Yeah.
I like that it was combined arms and artillery, especially artillery on aerospace fighters. Um,
Yes.
in fact,
Air Force and Air Force.
yes, in fact, the rules for like some of the special rules for the Screaming Eagles is that um, if they have aerospace fighters up, they get like a huge plus to their initiative. Yeah, +3 to their initiative for a scenario as long as they've got aerospace fighter cover. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after the Fourth Succession War, which if you're following along with our fellow friend podcasts, they're in the midst of it in of Mechs and Men, talking about Warrior Riposte, whatever. I don't care how it's said. I'm an American. I say riposte. Yes, exactly. But they're talking about it, that then. So it's this is happening during that time frame, which is kind of fun to think about again. That while all this is going on, while Justin, is working in the Capellan Confederation, and Andy Redburn and all those guys are having these fights. This is going on during that time, and they have a major defining moment for the bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it had ripple effects all the way forward. So
it does. Absolutely. But it's not the only thing. Like, soon after, as we go further into history, into the War of 39, which I've already read through, but I got to kind of read through some in Heir to the Dragon, the lore following the Warrior trilogy. We get to see some War of 39 action, and the Screaming Eagles had the unfortunate turn of events to face off against two regiments of the Ghost Regiments, which were the DCMS's attempt to basically bring in the lower classes, the Yakuza, into their military to help with their war efforts. And they were all armed with, Starlight Defense Force mechs and technology, so they destroyed the Eagles.
Yeah, to be fair, they destroyed everybody they came. I mean, the Ghost Regiments were,
yeah,
went like 12-0 or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And so that was even more devastating as the Eagles continued their downward fall from.
Yep, continue getting warped. Yeah. The First Brigade got hammered, and Second Brigade, they almost didn't even get into the fight. They were doing some missions, and then they were told to pull back. The war was over. So
yeah, they got, but unfortunately they got mauled before that happened. But
they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then they kind of had the fortunate, if you want to call it that, they did not get demolished during the clan invasion. They actually didn't see a whole lot of action during that time because they were out in the periphery for the Magistracy of Canopus, and moving past that, came back to the Federated Sons, Federated Commonwealth. And during the Civil War, they, again, were not necessarily involved heavily in that.
Yeah, there's a lot, though, in that little period there. Because as you mentioned, right around the time of the clan invasion, they got hired by the MOC, the Magistracy of Canopus, and they were lent to the Capellans, to fighting up in the Chaos March, during, I guess that'd be guerrilla. After they were there for the Pirate War, 57 through 58, and then they were lent to the Capellans to go help them out. FASA, they were kicking out books, 2-3 a year back in the late 90s, source books here, and it was a great time to be alive.
It was.
Now, every so often they would make mistakes, and they made a huge one in there. So in the Periphery FM, when you sit there and you look under the monarch, you've got the Second Magistracy Islanders, Nelly's Naughties, and they've got a big picture of an eagle, holding a globe. When you sit there and you read it, they were working with the First Brigade of the Screaming Eagles, and First Brigade misjumped and were never heard from again. In 3060, just boop, just gone.
Yeah.
But then when you sit there and you read the FM Mercs, they're like, Second Brigade gets destroyed. First Brigade breaks their contract and goes to join them. It's like, whoa, how many?
Where did the first?
Do they have?
Yeah, where did they go? Where did they come back from?
Exactly, and this is all within like 18 months of each other. I mean, literally, yeah, the first brigade jumps out in 3060 and it's never, they miss jump, and then they are breaking contracts 24 months later, give or take. So yeah, it's fun. One of these days, I would love to go back and try and fix that continuity error.
Yeah.
If you, my
A short
theory
story
is one of
of the group that misjumped finding their way back
yeah,
would be pretty fun.
that would be I guess our two stories. That would be one,
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
other story would be, you know, what happened. So my theory, this is my just my theory, is that because that's the golden era of mercenaries. I mean, you had the
Oh
Merc
yeah.
supplement, you have Merc Sup 1 and Merc Sup 2, and I think that the Eagles were trying to build a third regiment. Because there's no quick way.
That's yeah.
I mean, one of the books we read sat there and said the Eagles always are easy to replace because they're such a storied unit. That makes sense. They were trying to build up their third regiment again that they haven't seen since the First Succession War, and once again, fate kicks them into
Right. And so they lost
kicks
one,
them
but
into
were able to
county.
kind of replace it within a two-year period. That's hey, that's as
Exactly.
good a guess as any, right?
Good as guess as any, to fix the continuity error. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, in the Second Brigade, they were betrayed. They got crushed by the Wobblies, and they got crushed because the Capellans told the word of Blake they're there, because the Second Brigade was actually spying for Davian intelligence on House Lau. So House Lau set them up for
Yes.
failure. And, yeah, just betrayed them, and then the Wobblies came in, killed them, and so yeah, they had to limp them back to the Federated
Back
Sons.
to the Federated Sons, right?
I mean, what a crazy! I mean, and that's all that stuff about the Lao and the word of Blake is just like in the FM update. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
four
a short
paragraphs.
blurb. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so much happens. It's like this is amazing.
Yeah. And
You
it
could write a
and
whole novel
oh, easily. Several.
on that. Yeah, on that whole page. That's one page.
Absolutely. Um and yeah, that like I said, I'd read those novels.
I would
So,
love it. Yeah.
but yeah, they after that, like I said, they went into the FedCom Civil War. After that, and they were in the Draconis
Which they set
March.
out. Yeah.
They sat out, which is great for them because they didn't get mauled
Yeah. No
anymore.
kidding. No
Um,
kidding.
and then during the Blakist era, during
Hmm.
their special time, they were part of the group that went to strike at the Outworlds Alliance.
Right. Yeah, they got orders to jump into because they were told that there was a Word of Blake unit there, and it turns out there wasn't. There was the Snow Ravens and the Outworlds Alliance, and so they fought their way in, fought their way out, jumped home, but they'd already been predicted there, so they had to fight their way through the Ravens again to finally land and relieve their units they left behind to protect their dependents. So,
Always with the dependents, right?
and that's bad blood. I would love to go back and write also.
Oh yeah,
Actually, I had a story set during that fight, but set with the Davian units, not the Screaming Eagles. But
yeah,
yeah, Eagles versus Ravens.
yeah.
That's a fight I
Well,
would love to write.
I mean, after your story here with the Skulk of Foxes, it's not out of the realm of possibility, right? It's
Yeah, yeah,
the Sea Foxes don't like the Ravens either, so you know
yeah.
they've never had love for them. So, but yeah, so they got mauled again for that, and then
Again,
basically just kind of survived,
right. They were
literally
down to
just
four.
kind of surviving. So
They were down to 4 battalions when they jumped in, when they did that attack. They took 3 into the OA. They left 1 behind, and they limped out of the Blakist era according to field report. Field report
yes, yes,
AFFS lists them as at 2 battalions in strength. So give or take about 30, 80, 30, 85. They're down to 2 battalions plus essentially a combined arms regiment.
yeah.
And
Well,
yeah, they just kind of survived from that point forward.
yeah, absolutely. And it's still the same commander from the or the family of the commander from the
Family, yeah, the same thing.
fourth succession war. How did you say his name again?
I say it Hokala.
Hokala. That's how I say it now too. So,
H-O-K-A-L-A, yeah.
yeah.
I
So
hope that's right.
Hey, you're the author, right? Pronunciation starts with you. Maybe.
We'll go with
until
that.
we'll
Yes,
go, until someone from CGL says otherwise.
exactly.
um, absolutely. Yeah. So okay. Well then, um, yeah, we covered all that. So now this new novel, A Skulk of Foxes, is in the Ill Clan era.
Is in the Oakland era. I'm
What is
super
it?
excited.
Oh man, yeah, me too. And like I said, I thank you so much for the opportunity to read it to early and also to reveal the cover. Definitely
Yeah,
honored by that. Thank you. Thanks to all the CGL people as well who
yeah.
said
I had to run this up the chain.
who
This is
told you
this.
it was okay. Thank
Yeah,
you,
this wasn't a Jason
John
decision.
Helfers and yeah, John Helfers and everybody else. I appreciate it. So super pumped and but yeah, this is an ill clan era story. What about that? Do you want people to know ahead of time to be kind of excited for?
Well, first of all, I am not bringing this unit back. That's important, because a lot of stories like the GDL, like they came back. The Light Horse, it kind of came back. They'd been there, but kind of. Um, if a unit isn't dead, if they're not declared dead, they're out there still kicking. So it leaves a lot of space for authors like me who want to find new ground to play in. So and I always, like I said, these guys had always kind of pinged in my brain. So uh, this story, I'm super excited for it. It's in the Ill Clan era. It's out kind of on the edge of space. And I'm really hoping that people like it and give it a chance because the Sea Foxes, when people talk about the Sea Foxes, they're talking about what the cons are doing and what the AMAGs are doing. And this is not at that level. This is,
Oh
I
no.
like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is a poor merchant and a watch agent trying to keep things from utterly exploding underneath them.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the egos kind of get wrapped up into all of it, So and
Absolutely.
the help.
But I really like again without spoilers. I really
Without
like
spoilers.
how it is a small view of what sea foxes are doing all over the inner sphere, right? Because
Right.
it is, it is a small sea fox command merchant commander who is plying business, trade goods, talking about all the little things that get traded, right? And how those, are affected. I do like that little kind of microcosm look at it. Um, and then also how the Eagles are brought into it. I think it's very much a, you know, um, opportunity for both the Eagles and the Sea Fox merchant in the story to come out of it. And so I think, yeah, I think it's fantastic. I love seeing how you portrayed the Eagles as here we're here and we're surviving, and we're surviving by the skin of our teeth, but we're surviving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I really wanted to give that feel of that. Yeah, they've just been hanging on for decades and decades and decades, kind of getting kicked around, and until this opportunity comes up to go somewhere different, try working for someone else. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um, well, let's talk about mechs because that's also why we're always
Yes,
here, right? So
always
obviously there are
one
no
of the
force
favorite parts of the
packs.
show.
Yes, there are no force packs for the Screaming Eagles, but
I'm hoping that everybody buys the story and
yeah,
loves it so much that
no
CPL
force
listen.
packs yet, right? So
Right. I'm hoping.
we're gonna define what is our ideal Screaming Eagles force pack. We're gonna follow a little bit of the methods that they use for the force packs now, which is a repose of an existing mech, a variant of an existing mech, a jumping version, and then a new mech. And then with recent announcements, there has been vehicles added in for like the Star League packs, and I thought fitting for being a Star League historical unit. Let's throw in a vehicle or something too. So um,
Absolutely.
I'll give mine first. And if you're fine with it, we'll talk about the fact that these are all mechs in the fiction.
Absolutely. I
Okay,
love that we
okay.
went at the two different directions.
We
So
did, we
it makes it
did.
better.
So I
It
went
makes good
with,
radio.
yes, I went with, after reading Jason's novella here, reading A Skulk of Foxes, I went with, you know what? Let's go with the Ill Clan era um, Screaming Eagles. Because as far as some of the history is concerned, there's nothing
Yeah.
uh, saying, oh, they used a lot of units from the AFS, the Federated Sons, which you could definitely go there because they were
Probably.
working with them a lot. But there's nothing that says it. There's nothing that says, oh, they used a lot of this type of mech. They don't even list mechs for those old commanders as, oh, this was their mech. Um, but in this novel, we've got a lot of StarCorps mechs because they are involved. I won't say how,
Mhm.
but first we have for a repose. I chose something that you included, which nobody probably thought would be included, and everyone who hears this is going to be like, "What?" Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Everybody in your brain is listening. Think for a second the craziest mech that you can think would be in this story, and you're going to be wrong.
you're still going to be wrong. Absolutely. But it's the antlion. Okay. If you don't know what the antlion is, because I had to go look it up as well, it is a quad mech. It is a four-legged mech, and it's not just any four-legged mech. It is a four-legged mech specifically designed to deal with vehicles and infantry. Uh, it's got a couple mech mortars on it and a couple light machine guns. And so yeah, it's I love how it's portrayed in the fiction. I think that's fantastic. And it's new enough that I was like, you know what? It doesn't necessarily need a resculpt. I think the sculpt looks good, but a repose, I think would definitely be in order. So, then for my variant, I chose the king crab. If you're listening to the podcast, it is the mech on the cover of the fiction. It is the only artwork that we have for the Screaming Eagles because before now there has not been any artwork for the Screaming Eagles. And in fact, the only image associated with the Screaming Eagles other than their logo has been a Camo Specs Banshee that somebody painted for the Screaming Eagles in olive drab. And that's it. So I chose the king crab. And I chose variant. I think it's hold on. This was the only one we had in common.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That was funny. Uh, when you posted yours, I was like,
yes,
yeah. It's funny that we both picked as a variant specifically the king crab.
specifically yes. First, I want to say I do like the variant you picked for the fiction. Right, it's two Gauss rifles, two large pulse, and some streak twos. I do like that, and it is a variant off of kind of your standard king crab. However, the one that I thought would be fun to have, we could obviously go with that one. I think that's the O10 is the one that's in the
I think
fiction.
it's the 001, I think, is in the fiction. I have
Oh,
to look it up.
let's see. Da, 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 da. Yes, it's the Clan Buster.
Yeah.
So that's the one in the fiction. But I picked for the variant just because I thought it would be way different. I picked the 009.
Which one is that one?
Well, part of the reason is because it is one of the primary ones manufactured by StarCorps after 3104. And it is it's pretty crazy. It's got a heavy duty gyro, so it's not falling over.
Oh, is this the
It's
fun
got
one?
it is a fun one. It is a fun one. It has two light autocannon fives.
Oh, okay.
It has two plasma rifles, and then it has two 7.2 mml launchers, as well as a medium laser in each torso. So I went, what is one that's going to look completely different? And that's the one that I chose.
Completely different. That
Completely
that is
different.
yes.
Um, so just for fun, that's
I
what I
love it.
picked.
That would be a fascinating thing to see in like a
Right?
lens pack. Just looking at you.
And it's crazy too because it has ECM as well. So, protection
Of
there.
course it does. Why not?
Right. It has a small cockpit, which is a little interesting. I mean, that's just a quirk thing, really. But it says, despite all that, it's very popular with Lyran officers. So,
Hmm,
in the
there
Dark
we go.
Age and Ilclan era, like leading up.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, fun. What a cool variant. I did not
yeah.
pick that same one.
Well, we didn't think we would
Personally.
pick the same one, but.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but
Okay. And then for my jumping mech, I chose the Hermit Crab. Again, because in the fiction, some of the primary players are the King Crab and the Hermit Crab because they're both manufactured on the world where the story is set by Starcourt. And so that's why I had the Antlion, King Crab, and Hermit Crab. They're all Starcourt mechs. I just thought that was fun. And then a non Starcourt mech that I wanted to include, which you only gave a brief mention in the story, was
yeah,
a Rook.
just name check it.
Yes, I know. I had to go find it too, but it's a Rook. And I was looking at the Rook and I was like, huh, okay. It's kind of an old school. To me, it had like an old school vibe. As like this is a survivable mech. It's not fast, which none of the Succession War era mechs were fast. It's almost like we went back to that, where it's a 65 tonner. It only goes 64 kph, which is slow compared to all the mechs that have like XL
Oh,
engines and stuff. But it's decently armored and it's decently rugged and reliable and it's got some decent weapons. It's almost like the heavy. I don't know. I don't know why, and people will probably throw a fit about it, but it kind of made me think of like a modern era heavy urban mech.
yes. I was thinking the exact same thing. That's exactly
Nice.
how I would
Yes.
describe it. And yes,
um,
the Rook is a great sturdy militia slash merc unit. I mean, not for
absolutely.
flashy units like the Kellhounds or units that are all flash and dazzle. For
Yeah.
units that you sit there and hire to protect your border, they drive Rooks,
Absolutely.
which is
And
why
that's the thing, right? Is that part of this is the Ill Clan era technology, but at the same time, the Screaming Eagles, they've been surviving. They've got to pick things that
right.
have that are survivable, that are easy to fix, and they've been doing a lot of garrison work, so also
Yeah,
makes sense there
yeah.
too. So yeah, so those are my mechs in the Lance, and then because it makes an appearance in the fiction, I picked the Gladius, but not the Gladius. Well, you didn't really give a specification on which one, but I picked the Mark II because it's way
Hmm.
different than the art. It has a plethora of weapon variety there. So, but the Gladius hover tank. So Mark II, thought it was pretty cool. And again, definitely something that is, especially now, could be seen within the ranks of the Screaming Eagles. So, but Jason, what are your uh, mechs that you have for the Force Pack?
All right. As we mentioned, we went totally different routes. And for my goal for this notional force pack was that theoretically a player could play it through the entire history of the Screaming Eagles. You could go from Singapore to my story with this
Absolutely.
same lance pack. So so I busted out an older manual, which really I think is a good one for kind of covering the spread of the Succession Wars slash also like early Succession Wars,
Hmm.
which is Tiro 3039. It's an oddball one from early the
Nice.
2000s, but so for my repos, I picked and I call this the Inner Sphere Littoral Assault Lance.
Love it.
Littoral. Yeah. So for my repos is an awesome because I think an awesome is only available, I think, in like a guard. I'm not sure if it's only available in a Game of Armor Combat but it's not really out there. I don't think there's very many of
You're
them
right.
either. So
It's definitely in the game of Armored Combat. I'm having a hard time remembering if it's in something else.
right, and so I wanted, I feel like certain mechs should be in force packs every so often, so new players coming in can buy any other force pack, but also get an awesome. So for my repos was an awesome, and also because awesomes are awesome, it's in the name,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
those are sturdy mechs that will last for 400 years. So variant, I also picked the king crab, like as you did. However, I there's something in the Tiro 3039 that's amazing, and it's kind of stuck with me. And we're discussing the King Crab 010 is listed in the Tiro 3039. It's got twin LBX 10s and ERPPCs. And what's neat about it, though, in the description of it says it's got specific heat baffles to help blow the heat out the back from the PPCs. The PPCs are
Okay.
torso mounted,
Nice.
and it blows the heat out the back. And I think that would look really cool in a force pack.
Yeah.
So, and then of course then because you can just proxy it in for any king crab. But yeah, as a variant, I thought a 010 would be really cool. Jumping, catapult. Just everybody loves catapults. Catapults
Yes, for
jump.
sure.
That's one of the really good features of them. And also, I was running between the original Kickstarter and the new Kickstarter. Most of the really cool jumping mechs have been taken. So I was going through. I'm like, okay, well, what's left? I hate saying it like that, but I'm like, ooh, the catapult. I mean, we're talking about a very durable heavy, and which long and with the medium lasers is a tough fighter. So that was my jumping one. So for new, I came this close to also picking a hermit crab. I really, because I would love to have a hermit crab in plastic,
Right, right.
but I went hinky. I went kind of a deeper cut, and I picked the last Viper. The third Viper for those keeping in track at home. There's the Clan
Yes.
Viper, then there's the other Clan Viper, and now there's the new Inner Sphere Viper
Mm-hmm.
in Rec
Mm-hmm.
Guide 32, the one with the Blazers. So Blazer boys rise up.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's also a mech that's been there for the entire time. It was in like the Star League, and it was so it's a mech you could put on the table and sit there and say, okay, we're playing the second succession war with the Eagles. So those were my four mechs: the Awesome, the King Crab, the Catapult, and the Viper. And for vehicle, I also decided to be a little fun.
I saw
Because
that.
back in the original book, I always loved the description, and then Ben, he wrote a great story in Shrapnel featuring one. So I put in the Monitor Naval Vessel,
Yes,
just
fantastic.
for fun. I mean, we've got tanks, we've got helicopters. I don't think we have a boat yet. So this lands, Hans's
Put it
Lands
in
pack,
there.
Hans's Dream Lands pack. I'd put the Monitor Naval Vessel in there.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that story, if you haven't read it, is amazing. You should go check it out.
Absolutely great. He Ben absolutely captured the feel of a swamp. I mean, you could read the story and almost smell it in your nose. Phenomenal
yeah.
writing, absolutely.
And it worked great. It worked great.
Yeah,
So,
real good.
awesome. Well, there are our force packs for the Screaming Eagles. And super excited to again be showing off the cover for A Skulk of Foxes. It should be releasing soon, in quotes, right? And so make sure that you pick it up when it comes out. It's a lot of fun, and it's another great mercenary story set in the Ill Clan. So, Jason, again, thank you for letting me preview it. Thank you for letting me be the reveal for this cover. It is again
thank you for having me.
an honor.
I enjoy the show. I'm a
Thank you.
fan. I've been waiting to sit there and talk about these guys, and
Absolutely.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on here and chatting. I'm gonna. That's all the time we have for now. So I'm going to give us a wrap up here. If you are looking for a force pack that does exist, be sure to check out our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. You can check them out at fortressminiaturesandgames.com. Also, if you have a friendly local game store, don't forget to support them. And, it's important, and, have them get more BattleTech, because more BattleTech is better for all of us, right? And then also don't forget to check out the book when it comes out. All right, sorry, I gotta throw up the splash screen for Fortress Managers and Games here in the presentation.
Of course.
They are fantastic. Definitely appreciate them.
Yes,
but
absolutely. I met them for Southern Assault 3.
Yes, they're there. I believe they're one of the hosts for that. So
yeah, they're the host for it, and good company, good people. So
yeah. But again, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Catalyst Game Labs, for allowing me to reveal this. It'll be posted on the internet and for all to see and enjoy. And we will see you next time.